This is our sixth episode in the leadership series, and today we're tackling accountability, the last topic in leading ourselves before we move on to leading others. This will be a bit of a palate cleanser in that the last couple of episodes have been pretty heady. A lot of concepts, a lot of explanation. This one is pretty tactical and straightforward, so we'll just jump right into it. And we have three legs of the stool. We have our purpose, we have commitments and other elevating practices, and then accountability. And accountability is what gets the work done. In other words, in my line of work, we use the term what gets measured gets managed. And in this episode, we are going to talk about measuring and managing our activities. To do that, we set up our North Stars, which are more specific priorities around our purpose, and then our personal gap. How well are we performing today versus how we want to be performing? And once we understand that, we can develop a plan with short-term milestones and weekly commitments to support the effort. This is where the rubber hits the road. We're actually going to get work done now. Very exciting. Okay, we start with mind mapping. Mind mapping is an exercise that you do that you can find in a book called Designing Your Life by Bill Burnett and Dave Evans. And in that book, they show you how to mind map as well as a number of other exercises to set yourself up for success. A bit of background before I jump into the mind mapping and the North Stars is that in the fall of 2023, my spouse's 2-year Canadian work holiday visa had expired, and now we were sorting out our next steps. A month later, I received notice I would be laid off. So, and we were also working on our marriage immigration visa as well for the United States. So we had a lot of stuff up in the air. The bottom line was we went from highly structured in our work, et cetera, to suddenly having no inherent structure to drive us. I need structure in order to keep myself performing. So first I set up my North Stars. I have 7 of them: being together with my spouse, employment, professional development, book publishing, operations publishing, financial management, my ultimate home or our ultimate home, and then the fun stuff. These are all important. However, you notice a couple of them are paused. There's good reasons for that. The 2 things that got paused in this effort were book publishing, and that's because I needed to really focus on the employment stuff, which affected both my search for employment and my operations publishing, because it was the backbone of branding myself for my next career move. And then the ultimate home was paused because without being together or being clear about when and how that was going to happen, it was hard to plan for an ultimate home. So they're not going away. North Stars don't go away, but they're paused for a specific reason. Now, the mind map piece of this is doing this inventory about our activities, our capabilities, our users, beneficiaries of our work, the environments we work in, the interactions we have, and the objects we use in order to deliver that stuff. In that inventory of things, I've laid out, in this case, how I was performing at the beginning of this exercise. A couple of things to note here are the problems. Gravity problems are problems that don't go away. We can't solve them. We can't fix them. We have to either work around them or incorporate them as part of how we're going after our purpose. Anchor problems are the problems we're actually working on. In my case, it was to define myself and brand myself differently than I had in the past and shift my focus from large enterprise to smaller company practices. I assessed myself, and there's a process for doing this in that book. I assessed myself as operating at 80% of how I ideally would like to operate, and I noticed those gaps that I was talking about. The 2 gaps that don't fit cleanly into what I was just mentioning were that I also wanted to make sure that I was serving a marginalized constituency beyond my corporate entities, et cetera, and that my direct impact be greater. And I'll talk a little bit about how I was going after that. On the left side of this is that same inventory you were just looking at, just in a different structure. On the right side is how I saw what I saw needed to happen in order to move from that 80% to that 100%. That rebranding effort I was talking about, looking at consulting and small company engagement, even through startups. Focusing on developing my capacities beyond what they already had into market and sales activities. Already talked about the startup collaborations. And then having a specific goal for when I was in office versus out office. Instead of just saying, oh, it's I got to be in the office 3 days and out of the office 2 days, I wanted to have specific goals for being in the office versus out of the office. And then the objects that I deal with, I have a whole slew of them, but the things that I noticed that I needed work on were advanced website development and video generation so I could do this kind of blog work. Now that we understand our North Stars, we have to make them actionable. And in order to do that, we can set up short-term milestones. And in my case, I set up quarterly milestones to work against. And those short-term milestones gave me stretch goals to try to accomplish and work towards. And then I had to track my progress. So for the Q4 of 2023, this is how I set up my milestones against each one of those North Stars for my purpose. And you can see I have some of it I met, and others of it I didn't quite get there. I was still working on at the end of the quarter. I also, to make them much more actionable, built out weekly goals and then tracked daily the tasks that I was working on to accomplish those goals. And at the end of each week, I would review my performance for the week, what I did well, what I didn't do well, and that helped me to adjust. So that honest assessment of myself helped me to continue to improve my performance. What did we cover here? In the last 5 dispatches, we have covered the topics for leading ourselves, including our developing our purpose, developing commitments and other elevating practices, and then we've just talked about accountability. And within accountability, we need to establish our North Stars and inventory the areas of our personal performance that we want to improve. We set up near-term milestones and weekly goals and daily tasks to get that stuff done. And as we close out on that, then we will set up for the next quarter and the next quarter, or whatever your near-term goals are that you want to set up. But those North Stars don't go away, so I'll eventually have to revisit a couple of those that I put on pause. You can find that reference for the mind mapping and the gap assessment, the inventorying, and designing for your life, how to build a well-lived, joyful life by Bill Burnett and Dave Evans. And you can find the entirety of my body of articles and videos at my blog site, www.operations-architect.com. Have a great rest of your day, and as always, your feedback is welcome.